Want to talk about gun control? That should get us rolling.
Sure it does. But it has been fascinating. There are some issues that come before the legislature where literally you'll get, you lose track of how many emails you get or how many phone calls you get per day. And guns are definitely one of those issues. Any discussion of guns, you get hundreds, if not hundreds a day,
bombarded
of people on both sides. A very extremely emotional issue, and I think we're on different sides of it. I come from a place of looking at saying, the massacres that have happened, the mass killings that have happened. I don't believe more guns will solve the problem with mass killings. I think better controls on background checks, making sure people who shouldn't have guns don't have guns. I'm more in that camp. I don't know how Sal would describe his views, so I won't describe his views on it. But I do think that a rational background check is very positive. And I also think I even go for ammunition clips. I don't know why people need multiple rounds of ammunition if they're hunters. I just don't understand that. You're a hunter, I'm not, so maybe you can explain it to me. I don't know why you need basically a semi-automatic weapon to hunt. So we're on different sides of that one.
You ever see me shoot a shotgun?
Is that why
I
we
need a semi-automatic
weapon
right? With lots of rounds.
Must be
okay. The background check. Let's go into that. First of all, the state of Oregon has one of the most extensive background checks of any state. I think there's 13 states that have similar to ours. And believe it or not, we do a pretty thorough job. We even, in your gun shows, you have to go through a background check. You can't just go into a gun show and buy it. I was surprised when I found out other states don't do that. You can go to a gun show and buy a gun, and you can buy a 105 howitzer and no one checks your background. Surprising. The other thing that I think needs to be incorporated in the background check for a purchase of a weapon is, and this is going to be a touchy one, but the federal government has got to ease the information about people that are mentally ill. You don't know if they're mentally ill. You have no idea whatsoever. So how would you determine on a background check whether they're mentally ill? You can't do that. And I'm going to tell you something right now. No sane person goes in and shoots 26 kids and adults. That person is insane, no matter how you like the kids that just did the stabbings. I heard that this one young gal got killed because she turned down a kid for, I think, a prom date or some stupid thing like that. That's a mentally ill person. Does anyone in this room know what the worst disaster in public schools has ever happened in the United States?
Virginia Tech.
Nope. Nope. Not even close.
Shooting up in Eugene.
Nope. 1927, Bath, Michigan.
Ooh.
You knew it, huh?
It was like an older guy, wasn't he?
Older guy, and he blew up the school.
Blew up the school.
With
Wow.
the kids in it. 40-some people. The worst in the United States history. It was a farmer that they built this new school. He got taxed a little bit more. He lost his farm. They went in with dynamite, blew the school up during school.
Wow. So one point on the background check too, what we were arguing about basically in the last session is right now you can sell a gun on Craigslist, or you can sell a gun to another private individual.
You can on Craigslist.
Not Craigslist, sorry, but to another private individual without having a background check or knowing who that person is. I think that's what we were trying to, at least, is there a way to address it? The other thing on the mental health issue, we worked on legislation. It took, I know Andy Olson was lead on this. It took like 4 years to get done. But how does can law enforcement actually communicate with mental health professionals? What can mental health professionals in Oregon tell law enforcement? And just trying to find that, because civil liberties are absolutely vital.
Right.
And Oregon's piece of very strong value in civil liberties. But at the same time, you have law enforcement personnel walking into a situation with someone who is mentally unstable. If they had that information, they could treat the situation differently. So we towed this very fine line with the legislation that we have, and we set up a process where law enforcement can contact county agencies. If there is records, they can simply give a red flag, so they can give a red flag on. But it was a dance. Took over 4 years to try to get to.
As for the situation of, like, I'm going to sell Peter a gun and he's mentally ill,
Yeah, it's true. You better do a background check on me.
How many thinks that a criminal is gonna do that?
But
Well,
see,
you can buy one on the street of Portland, and how quick? That's a fact. So, and I don't mind a background check at all. And I would like to see us incorporate the mental health people in a background check. But it's very, very difficult to set standards to, why do you think they go to schools and shoot people?
Easy on our targets.
It's a gun-free zone. That's like going into a pen with sheep. That's, I think Richardson had an interesting idea. He said that maybe you should arm the teachers, and lo and behold, that's what they're doing in some states right now.
would you guys want him to be armed? I don't know.
Yeah, you got it. I didn't say all the teachers.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
But.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
You're welcome.
Feeling the love.
I'm asking the question.
That's right. By the way, the Giants are going to whip the Dodgers back.
While we're on the topic, couple things that I'd like you to address. One, Ashland is trying to prohibit open carry within the city limits, and the NRA is working on getting national legislation that if you have a concealed carry permit in any jurisdiction, it's good nationwide. Could you address?
I think that a national approach to it is okay, because every one of these states basically have the same test and the same, you only have a certain way to be safe with a gun, period. Whether no matter what you do. So why not have something that works in all the states? As for Ashland, I don't know why. I'd just as soon know that a guy's carrying a gun than not carrying it. I'd like to know that.
Let me talk a little bit.
You can see it.
The Ashland situation, I met with the mayor on this about a week ago. Because I said, what's going on here? What happened here? And this idea didn't come from the city council. This idea came from a group of people who signed a petition basically to the city council saying they were so frustrated by the power that the NRA has to block what they felt to be reasonable legislation on the federal level. They wanted, and nothing happened in the Oregon legislature. They said, we just want something on the city level. This is their whole kind of point of view. It is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It's such a counterproductive move. So this group came forward. They want this done. The council's going, we don't know how are we supposed to handle this issue. This issue is huge. And simply by bringing it forward, they had people coming to Ashland carrying the guns up and down the street. The very thing they didn't want to have happen was happening in response to this thing coming forward. But interesting enough, in which I thought was a very good move by the mayor, he simply said, look, is there any way we can have a rational discussion about any of these issues? And the first answer was, no, we can't. We can't have a rational discussion. And people were very upset at each other and stuff. But he said, we're going to try it anyway. We're going to appoint, one of our counselors said that she will have meetings with people, both pro and against this idea. And at the first meeting, apparently, only people who were angry about the proposed ordinance showed up. And they vetted their concerns with it. But one of those people made us a comment saying, I don't know why you guys are talking about concealed carry or even open carry. Why aren't you talking about gun safety? And the city councilwoman said, so what are your thoughts on gun safety? And she said, anybody who lets a kid play with a gun is an idiot. And so the city councilwoman said, wait a second, can we build off of that idea? That's common ground. Idiots with guns, I think, is something that nobody wants to have happen.
Well, that's a lot of those are mentally ill people too.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And we have no way of checking whether you're a half bubble off plum or not. We just don't have a way to check that, and that's unfortunate because you look at the people that have committed these crimes, and boy, they're tweaked, they're twisted.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, it sounds like you guys are in agreement. The only thing that I sense that is the disagreement is the extent to which regulations on the background check or the extent to which you identify a mentally disabled person or mentally ill person is where you guys have an impasse. Is that correct? You both agree that there should be regulations?
Well, I think we both agree that we don't want someone that's mentally unstable to have access to a weapon.
Correct.
I don't care if it's a knife, a machete, a gun, or whatever. You really don't want to have that person that could be potentially violent to have access to that. I think we do agree on that. I would like to see us be able to incorporate that into our background checks, and I think that Oregon does a pretty thorough job as for personal people selling a gun to a family member or something of that nature, probably not a family member, but a friend. I don't think that the bad people are going to adhere to that law at all. And how do you check it?
So I would say most likely, we definitely agree on the safety issues and common sense issues on background checks. I think I have a much stronger concern about the proliferation of weapons. And I'd be willing to try to find ways to regulate the proliferation of weapons. America has the most weapons per capita of any industrial country, with the highest murder rate of any gun murder rate of any industrial country. I would like to see us pull back on that.
But on the other hand, I'm going to be the con here. I love doing this. If you took out Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, and I think it's New York, we would be one of the lowest. And they have the strictest.
So you heard it first. Esquivel wants to take out New York. He wants to take out Chicago. You heard it here.
If you took their
Large
murders,
populations.
there's more
Yeah.
people killed in Chicago than there is in Afghanistan.
Sure.
And that
That's
has
true.
one
That's
of the
true.
most strictest gun laws in the United States.
Sure.